I often receive a question from students: should a CV be short or long? Today, we will talk about whether a short CV is better or a long CV is better in one common situation. You are applying for a research assistant position in a life science laboratory in a college or university. Hi everyone, welcome to the Foundational Skills in Life Sciences podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Synaptologica. We discuss the skills that life science scholars learn, use, and improve throughout professional activities. Your benefit is expressed in my motto: learn the skills, enjoy academic life. First, a disclaimer. What I'm going to tell you is my personal opinion. It is possible that it does not apply to you in your own specific situation, in your specific research field, in your program, in your own institution, and in your country. And each professor could have a different opinion from mine. So please listen to my comment not as a definitive advice, but just as a starting reference. I hope my comment will serve you as a starting point for your thought. Let's talk about today's question. My students often ask whether a CV should be short or long. I have also responded to a similar question on an online forum, Reddit. My response was brief there, so I would like to comment on it a little deeper here in my episode. What is a CV? Let's start with what a CV is. If you have studied statistics, you would say that CV stands for a coefficient of variation. But it's a little different in today's episode. Here, the CV stands for curriculum vitae. Online dictionaries define it in the following way. I will cite two dictionaries, and they defined it in a similar manner. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, CV is, quote, a short account of one's career and qualifications, prepared typically by an applicant for a position, close quote. According to the Collins Dictionary, quote, your CV is a written account of your personal details, your education, and the jobs you have had, close quote. But a CV has a little more specific meaning in academia, especially in colleges and universities. CV is a document that describes the history of the person's academic activities and achievements. Typically, a CV would include the history of the person's education, including the school grades, the history of the person's service activities within the educational institutions, and the service activities for the communities outside the educational institutions. CV will also include the history of the person's awards received, including fellowships and grants, if they are available. CV will also include a list of publications and a list of presentations, again, if they are available. If you have worked outside of academia, the CV would also include the history of work experience. What is to be included in the CV actually depends on the person's career stage. There are multiple stages in an academic career. For example, some typical stages will include the following 4 levels. 1. Undergraduate students, that is, students at a college or a university for a bachelor's degree. 2. Graduate students, that is, students in a graduate program for a master's degree or a doctoral degree. 3. Postdoctoral researchers, that is, researchers who have completed their doctoral degrees. And 4. Professors at a college or a university. A CV of an undergraduate student will be relatively simple, and it will look different from the CV of a graduate student. The CV of a professor will look different from the CV of a trainee at an earlier career stage. My general comment. We have been saying that a CV will look different depending on the person's career stage. But I have one common viewpoint for CVs at all stages. I would like to view the descriptions in the CV during and after the undergraduate education as the defining statements of the person. They show you what you did, why you did it, and what you intend to do in the long run. Whatever you have experienced in the past will be important to you now. Whatever you are experiencing now will be important to you in the future. So when I read a CV of a trainee at any career stage, I would feel satisfied if the CV is crafted carefully with detailed information about the trainee. Overall, I would recommend you pour some effort into improving your activities in the CV and also into improving the writing of the CV so that the content of the CV will be enriched. Today's question again. Let's go back to today's question. It was, should my CV be short or long when I apply for a research assistant position in a college or university lab? Based on what we have been talking about so far today, I think you can easily guess my answer. Yes, my general answer is that a long CV will be better than a short one if there is no specific requirement and if there is no page limit. But let's be more specific and practical. There are many situations where a student submits a CV for evaluations. Today, let's assume that you asked me this question, and we will also assume that you are an undergraduate student and you are applying for a research assistant position in a life science lab in a college or university. There will be two general starting cases about how you apply for a position. I will tell you my recommendations in those cases. Case 1, starting with an advertisement. In one case, you saw an advertisement for a research position, and you are applying for the position based on the advertisement. In this case, check if the advertisement says something about the format of the CV. If the advertisement gives you some instructions, follow the instructions. For example, it could say to limit the CV to 1 page. Then prepare a short CV that is 1 page long. If there is no clear description about the format of the CV, especially the length of it, look for contact information and ask about what type of the CV format is expected. They could respond and say, for example, to limit the CV to 1 page. Then prepare a short CV that is 1 page long, according to the instructions. But if they say that they do not require a specific format, in other words, if they say that any format is fine, then it could be good to follow my recommendations about a long version that I'm going to show you soon. Case 2, starting without an advertisement. In another case, you did not see an advertisement, but you became interested in the work of a professor and you are applying simply by sending an email to the professor. In this case, I would recommend you to prepare a long version. What to describe in a long version of a CV? Things related to experiments. At this career level, it is reasonable that there is not much academic experience yet, so a CV will tend to be short. In a CV like this, what I often see is only a brief list of experiences. For example, if you have worked in a research laboratory before, such a CV would include a list of methods that you used. Typically, such a list would say, quote, familiarity with laboratory methods, PCR, Western blotting, overexpression of a gene, close quote. But this list is very dry. When I read it, it is very challenging for me to know who you are. Usually, when an undergraduate student creates a list of methods, such methods are standard. So the method list is not helpful. In addition, even if an undergraduate student has used some methods, it does not mean that the same methods can be used at an advanced level in a specific research lab, because the same methods could have been modified in the lab. Also, completely different methods could be used in the lab. Instead of making a simple list of methods, try giving a context to how the methods were used. Emphasize what you did using the methods and how you thought in the process. Here is an improved example. Quote, "My project addressed the role of gene X in the biological system Y. In order to address the function of gene X, we took complementary approaches. We either downregulated or upregulated the expression of gene X and evaluated the function of the system Y. My postdoctoral collaborator in the lab worked on the downregulation effects by an RNA interference method. I contributed to the project by working on the upregulation effects. For this purpose, I overexpressed gene X by transfecting cultured cells of the system Y with a plasmid DNA containing the gene X. I confirmed the overexpression of the gene by using the quantitative polymerase chain reaction, or qPCR. I also confirmed the overexpression of the corresponding protein by using the Western blotting. We found that ... The results indicate that gene X is involved in the function Z in the biological system Y. This work led to the publication, or oral or a poster presentation, as shown in the publications section of this CV." Close quote. This description contains the same methods, PCR, Western blotting, and overexpression of gene X. But this description is much more meaningful, in-depth, and professional because there are details and the context. It includes the overall goal of the project, what your role was, what you did, and why you used the specific methods. I also like small details like spelling out the abbreviation qPCR. Most importantly, this description will show how thoughtful you are. I would love to read a CV like this, and when I read it, I would like to meet with you. What to describe in a long version of a CV, things unrelated to experiments. We talked about an example of the experience related to laboratory experiments. Let's talk about an example not related to experiments. In the service section of the CV, suppose you wrote simply, quote, "I organized the FSLS club," close quote. Then the reader of your CV will think immediately, what is FSLS? Do not use an abbreviation without spelling it out. What did you do in this activity? And is this club related to research in any way? Instead, how about writing in the following way? Quote, "I organized the Foundational Skills in Life Sciences Club, abbreviated as FSLS Club. This is an extracurricular club that I organized voluntarily. Every week, our 50 members will discuss the skills necessary for undergraduate students to learn in order to succeed in the life science career. We also invite faculty members in our institution every month so that we can hear and discuss the talks about specific topics related to the foundational skills." Close quote. Now, the reader, that is I, will be able to visualize what the club is and what the club members do. I will also understand that it is directly related to research in any life science lab, so I will think that you would be an interesting and insightful addition to my laboratory personnel. My thoughts. So overall, the important points to me as a reader are the rich content, clear descriptions, and logical organization of the entire document. I would like to see a set of careful descriptions of key statements. They will give me the good impression of an intellectually active person and the good impression of a careful writer and thinker. The rich content will make the CV naturally long. So I would prefer to read a long CV rather than a short CV. A short CV will give me the impression that the person has not much to say about the intellectual or academic activities. This will not be a positive point, at least for me. But of course, I do not mean to suggest an unnecessarily long CV, just by describing the same content in a tedious manner. We do not want to see wastefully long descriptions. We always want the description and the CV to be concise and to the point, without unnecessary things. So, to be most accurate, here is my conclusion of today's episode. I prefer to read a detailed CV than a simple one. I hope this approach will be useful for you. This is it for today. Your action. If you have questions about CV, please send me an email about them. We can discuss many things about CV. I'm planning to make a mini-series on CV later. My email address is ideas@synaptologica.com. Thank you for joining me in today's episode of Foundational Skills in Life Sciences. I'm Dr. Synaptologica. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.